English, French, Serbian, Spanish, Korean, English.
And German.
Where does your story begin?
It begins in Austria, in Vienna. That's where I was born. But both my parents are Serbian, so I grew up in a Serbian-speaking home. I lived in Austria, but I went to French school. So I kind of grew up already with 3 languages. I mean, from the age of like 4 or 5. And yeah, people say, oh, you're a genius, and this and that. And I'm like, no, I think it's just the way I grew up, because everyone in my school kind of spoke at least 3 languages. So 4 was kind of normal too. It wasn't really special. And I don't think I was like naturally gifted at it. I didn't want to speak until the age of like 3. So, actually it's there are some kids that can really pick it up quickly. And then there are some that if they like grow up with a couple of languages, they kind of struggle to kind of categorize that. I think I was the latter. And I think only around the age of 10, maybe I was able to fully like put them in boxes and separate them. I would mix and switch a lot while growing up. And yeah, I think that was also one of my insecurities actually growing up, because I felt like I didn't speak a single language well. Because, when you learn so many languages at once, you can never truly focus on one specifically, right?
If you stick around to the end of the video, we might have a little bit of a chat in Spanish, French, and see how that goes.
I'd be happy to do that. I do speak Serbian fluently, but I never went to Serbian school, right? So I never learned the grammar. I just learned it from hearing it, right? Yeah. Or I never learned to write. So I self-taught myself Cyrillic at some point. I used to love watching telenovelas, which were really big in Serbia back in the day. And I couldn't read the subtitles because it was in Cyrillic.
Spanish audio with Cyrillic subs.
That's right. Okay. And I used to always call my mom's best friend like over the phone. And this was like Austria, Serbia, which was very expensive back in the early 2000s, right? So I was like, and she was reading the subtitles for me. And my mom caught us one day and she was like, Draga, like either you learn Serbian or you cannot watch any telenovelas. And like I learned it in a day. I was like, I need to watch the next episode. So yeah, I feel like, it's very dependent on environment, right? So for me, it was kind of like a survival mechanism, not in a bad kind of survival way, but it was just like, that's how I adapted to my environment. Yeah.
With the French school, was there a particular reason that, like, you're in Austria, which is a German-speaking country,
right,
but then you're in a French school. So.
Right. There is a very specific reason. Actually, my parents moved with my 2 sisters to Austria back in 92 when there was war in Yugoslavia. And my sisters used to go to a bilingual Serbian-French school, which was like a good school. And my parents were like, oh, let's put our kids in a school where they can learn 2 languages. And then while moving, they were like, okay, we can put them in an Austrian school, but it's already traumatic enough to have to move because of war. Mm-hmm. Let's put them in a school where they already know the language at least a little bit. Mm. So they were put in the French school, and it ended up being a really good choice because now we speak so many languages. And then when I was born, they were like, okay, let's give Draga the same opportunities so that she can, like learn French just like our sisters. And I mean, we learn German anyways because we live in the country. So that was basically the reason. And I'm very happy with the choice. I mean, it was tough. I won't say that my school wasn't hard, but it was, I think, a great choice in the end because I ended up speaking all of the languages that I speak now.
Mm-hmm. And any key parts? I mean, to be honest, I don't know that much about Serbian or Austrian cultures.
Right.
So are there any key parts of either of those that you think like really left a mark on you as you were growing up?
I think, so I went to French school, right? So I was constantly surrounded by international people. So for me, I don't feel as strongly of an Austrian as I do as a Serbian, just because when I go back into my home, my mom is cooking Serbian food. She's speaking to me in Serbian. She's watching Serbian cable TV, So like, I always felt like my home was always very Serbian and my culture too. And every holiday that I had, I would always go back home to Serbia as well. So I have a lot of relatives, family, even friends. So I felt very connected to that part of me. But also, when I'm in Vienna, when I'm in Austria, I feel like home because that's like where I grew up, right? So like the place specifically like reminds me of home, also food and stuff like that. But then specific things about the culture may be slightly different from Serbian, so I feel like I'm a little bit more maybe like hospitable, like always trying to like, feed people, give them certain things, that's very Serbian, like kind of
Okay.
like this
Right.
southern, like European like vibe. Whereas Austrians are a little bit more like German, a little bit more reserved, a little bit more, like they take their time with certain things. So I think, yeah, I'm a little bit more, fiery in an Eastern European way.
So,
What is it that you like the most about the Austrian culture?
So the Austrians are very like they have their own like principles. Everything is organized. Everything is like the way that it's supposed to be. And I like that, it's a great place to actually grow up in because Vienna is like the #1 city in the world for quality of life.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's always like Melbourne or Vienna, and usually Vienna wins. And and yeah, so it's a beautiful place. Like everything is organized, everything is calm, nothing changes. So I think it's a very good place to grow up in a like kind of stable environment, right? So that part I really appreciate, also love the ski culture. Love being able to go to the Alps. Beautiful, like fresh water as well. Like all of those things. I love food. So yeah, all the different like cold cuts and cheeses and breads that Austria also offers is great. I love sausages. Like a true Austrian. And yeah, so I would say those aspects. But yeah, overall, if somebody asks me how I feel, I would say I would feel more international than just purely Austrian. Which is, yeah, a lot of people don't understand that because they're like, well, if you're born and raised in Austria, then you're Austrian, aren't you? And I'm like, no, actually, I do feel like culturally more Serbian. But then if I would have to place myself, I would just say I'm a global citizen because I just grew up like in many different places. And with all the languages that I know and all the cultures that I'm kind of in touch with, I just feel like, yeah, a citizen of the world.
I mean, on Evolved, there are a lot of examples of these conversations already, so it might be strange for certain people, but I think if you watch these videos, you're going to see a lot of people with this kind of way of thinking.
Yeah, but like Americans, you know how they are. I feel like even though they have their own cultures, maybe in their household or they come from certain places, they'll be like, no, I'm American. But I never had that like national pride. Maybe it's also, because Serbian people are the biggest immigrant group in Austria. So we are kind of slightly discriminated against. You would see people having certain prejudice towards Serbian people. And took me actually like 7 years to get the Austrian citizenship. I had to fight for it. It's not a birthright. So I started the process when I was like 16, 17 years old. Yeah, 16, I think. And it took me up until the age of 23 to get it. And I had to really, really fight for it because they were trying to basically deny me citizenship on any account that they could find. Yeah, so it was very hard to actually like even be acknowledged by the system. So in that sense, when you've just felt this sort of like back and forth your whole life, or even when I just say my name is Draga, in German, hello, my name is Draga, they're like, oh, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, well, my parents are Serbian. And they're like, oh, you speak German really well. And I'm like, I was born here, so you would have these like micro, like aggressions and stuff like that, which weren't that big, like it's never as big as, maybe a person of color would like experience, but I could still like maybe like feel a certain level of discrimination against people, or like, yeah, the kind of prejudice that people would, what, can you tell me why are Serbian people so aggressive? I'm like, I'm not aggressive, but okay, cool, So yeah, maybe that's why I also always had friends of different cultures. Even when I lived in the UK, like most of my friends were not like white British people. I don't think I have a single white British friend. Most of my British friends had like an Asian or Caribbean or African background or something, so they were always mixed because I feel like I just connect with people who grew up with multiple cultures. I connect with them more.
We're all examples of this on this table, but I think it it does make sense that sometimes, like when you're born in a country and obviously you've got love and you feel at home there, but also you have origins from other places. I often find those people end up going off to Korea as well, both of you, and feeling a bit more comfortable. Maybe it's hard when you're young.
Right.
Where are you really from? Like, I was born here, But with time, I think it's actually what pushes people to go and see the world and make their impact in a lot of different countries as well. But you mentioned about so is Serbia considered Balkan?
Yes, it's a Balkan country. It's also Eastern European country. But I wouldn't categorize them in the same way that you would do like Northern Eastern European countries. So our culture would be slightly different. It would be more Balkan, like you said.
Because the question, I mean, you mentioned about maybe Austrians are a bit colder. For me, just only after like meeting a few Serbians here and there, is it stronger personalities in general, or how would you?
I feel like we're very opinionated. We will also tell you exactly how things are. There's no like sugarcoating around it. So if we're happy, we're very happy. If we're not happy about something, we'll let you know. So I like that. Like, I don't know if you were allowed to curse here, but like the like attitude is very much Balkan, I feel like. And I feel like we're just more passionate because we're more south, right? Like technically earlier we also had the sea, right? Serbia and Montenegro used to be one country as well, or like whole of Yugoslavia. So in a sense, we're more Southern European as well in a way. So a bit more Mediterranean style of culture. Yeah, so it's not as reserved. As soon as somebody is even interested slightly in your culture or anything like that, we greet those people with open arms, I feel like.
But then you've got the Austrian kind of bit more maybe stoic and reserved, the Serbian passion, and then you're in a French school and did that French influence also? Was it mainly French from France, or where were the teachers?
No, actually, I mean, all the teachers were French, yes.
As in from France?
From France, yeah. Because it's kind of, you have these like lycées français all around the world, usually in like capital cities, and you would have them basically be sent by the French government to teach all around the world. And so French school was very mixed. It wasn't just French people. So there were a lot of French people, yes, but also a lot of maybe like Austrian French people, or even actually Vienna has one of the headquarters of the United Nations in the world. So you would have a lot of basically diplomat kids going to French school. So you would have like, I don't know, African or Arab speaking countries that would have, like French maybe also as their main language. So they would want their kids to go to French school. So we were very mixed, I feel like. And I feel like that also made me more international in that respect, because it wasn't just like one or the other culture. It was always a mixture of people. And I always also gravitated towards those people. I feel like most of my friends are either like Arab or like Persian or African, like those kinds of friends. Or they would have like, they would be French Austrian, not just French or Austrian. So yeah, those were my group of friends growing up. So yeah, that's why I never felt like, oh, this is purely French or this is purely German. But yeah, there's definitely certain things about, for example, like French educational system that is very French that I grew up with that I didn't really like, to be honest.
Tell us.
We
need to.
Par exemple.
It was just very strict, like a lot of times they would just like put us down for not achieving certain things. Like I feel like because we were like, this lycée français has a very, like a reputation to uphold. So it would be like, for example, in high school, you have the ES section, which is like economics and social sciences, S, like which sciences, and L. So everyone who was doing L in literature, they were like, oh, you're losers. Like L, because it's like, you're not going to achieve anything in France with that degree. Like if you go into L, what are you going to study? Literature? What are you going to do with that later on, So there was a big like segregation between like what is a good, section to go into, everyone who's doing sciences, they were like praised, like, oh, you are the smarter kids, you have better grades, this and that. And then the ES is like, oh, it depends in which direction you go. You're kind of in the middle there. Like, if you have good grades, good for you. If not, like you got to work on that. But yeah, we're constantly told like, yeah, if you keep on being like this, you're not going to achieve anything in France. And I'm like, I'm not planning to go to France. So like, I don't know why you're putting all this pressure on us. Yeah. also the fact that there was a big difference between what was considered to be an expat and what was considered to be an immigrant in our school. Because, like, if you came from the West, if you came from, like, French country, or if you came from, like, the United States, you were, like, kind of considered, like, a higher class, you know, like, student. You were, like, an expat. Whereas a Serbian kid would be definitely considered an immigrant, you know. The Turkish Serbian people were, like, kind of seen as, like, oh, you know, they might struggle in school. So when I had average grades in school, they were like, oh, yeah, she's doing her best. She's all right. Like, she's doing a good job. I was not studying, let me tell you. Like, I think I just clocked out of school at some point because just the energy. I work on positive reinforcement, like, not and reassurance, not on critiques and, like, negative, you know, like, energy. So I just clocked out, I think, somewhere, like, in high school, and I just was not putting in effort that much. And they thought that was my best, which is a bit sad if you think about it. Like, them just assuming because I'm from Serbia, maybe that, like, that's all I could achieve. And I ended up going to one of the best universities in the UK. So look at me.
I did a bit of studying with the French as well, and there's a positive side of, you know, if you know, French people will let you know when your grammar's wrong. You know? So, like, there's a positive side, but definitely that criticism can go both ways, right? So it sounded like. Do you think that influenced you at all, though, in terms of how has your personality from going through the French system? Do you think you have a bit of that, like, French critique in you as well to others?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm very, very harsh on myself when it comes to my languages as well. So yeah, I always I feel like it didn't do me a favor in the sense of, like, always being extremely self-critical when it comes to academics. And I think that's also what made me have extreme anxiety during university, and also it even developed into, like, an anxiety disorder, and I had panic attacks and stuff like that. It was also the pressure of my parents, Eastern European parents, being like, you have to do university, otherwise you'll be a failure. So there you know, there was a lot of pressure, I feel like, growing up to kind of always do your best, and, you know, like, there's no space, like, perfection or nothing, you know, because in French, you know, in school how it is. It's like, you know, 18 to 20, because grades scores go up to 20. So 18 to 20 is, like, for God, right? Like, like 17 is like 17 is for the professor, and then, like, 16 is for the best student. That's kind of how it is. And anything beyond that, like, anything under that, it's like you're kind of average, right? So it was very hard to function in that system, right? Because it was always like either you strive for perfection, which you can never achieve anyways, or you're going to be a failure. So yeah, I think I took that in, and then I always had a very, like, black and white sort of thinking when it came to academics or how I need to perform. And I developed this kind of perfectionist mindset. But I also was freezing, you know, in certain situation where I'm like, oh, I don't think I can achieve that anyways. So then it was an inner struggle, especially, like, as a young adult, trying to navigate all of that. But in a sense, it also helped me also improve my languages. So I would say the good takeaway is that, you know, I speak 6 languages, and I speak them at quite a high level. So I'm very happy about that. And I'm very grateful for it. So yeah, when people say, "Oh, you speak those languages so well," and I'm like, actually, I think I could do better. You know, there's always this, like, slight, like, perfectionist being like, "Oh, you know, like, my languages could be better." But at this point, like, I've learned to love that part of myself, even though it's not perfect. You know, I'm like, who can say that they can speak 6 languages fluently, you know? Like, it's a great thing, and it makes me connect to so many people around the world. So I'm super, super grateful and very very happy that I'm able to do that. So props to my parents and to the French teachers that kicked my ass. And yeah, to my upbringing. I'm very happy and grateful.
I think because the British system, sometimes we're a bit too soft as well. So, for example, with the languages, if we see someone else learning English, we're often like, oh, you're doing a great job, well done. Like, we're a bit more empathetic.
But maybe
because
you can work on this, you know? But
they might
like,
say that, but still, though, they're not going to give you as much of a tough time. Let's say if a non-native English speaker goes to the UK, makes a few grammatical errors, like, we're not focusing that much on it because we know the whole world is speaking English to some degree often.
Right.
But then French people, will often let you know, me, no, how did you say that? And
exactly.
at the time, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty good for your language skills. So
That's right.
And that's why we're here speaking to you today as a polyglot.
But then I think like that mentality of saying like, okay, if you follow that pathway, you're not going to achieve anything, that can break some people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have self-belief, then you might not do what you really want to do and do like everyone else.
That's what I always find pedagogically wrong with the French system, because there are some kids, they don't already have that support at home. And then you go to school to be broken down even further. Like, it was really like you could see certain maybe boys who were struggling, like, and who were already having a tough time. And then the teachers on top of that, like, going at it. And you could see just the light of, like, in their eyes, like, fade, like, as the years went on. And it just, now thinking back at it, I'm like, oh, these teachers, this was not right. Like, why were they behaving like that? These were kids that just needed a little bit of extra support, you know? And all they were like faced with was extra criticism. And I feel like, yeah, I had one teacher, she was a German teacher. She was from Poland. Like, her roots were Polish and Peruvian or something like that. Very, very cool. Anyways, obviously, like a person with multiple cultural backgrounds, she would have a little bit more understanding. And she would actually take certain students like after school and actually have talks with them, which was like a no-go for our school. Usually we had a very clear separation between professor and students. We weren't having any sort of like relationship that went beyond like professor student, but this teacher, she would really like, she would go on coffees and kind of have like a little talk about them, how they envision their future, or like if they needed any support and stuff like that. And that teacher was maybe one of the teachers that I could say like also changed my life, because she made me think a little bit deeper and a little bit more. I don't know. I just wasn't very conscious either of like my situation and how I was living my life. So I'm really grateful for that teacher. And I feel like, yeah, teachers should really like think about what kind of impact they have on children, because it's a very impressionable time. We really don't know what we're doing when we're in school.
Yeah. And that's why you mentioned like the young boys struggling. You're at a key age where at home, maybe as you said, there might be some tension. The teachers are stressing you out. And then another guy says, oh, just smoke this. It'll make you feel better. Or God, let's just go and drink this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that guy with so much potential ends up like ruining stuff and the knock-on effects. But from you, it sounds like the positive example of that teacher. Do you remember anything specifically that Polish Peruvian teacher said that stuck with you?
I don't remember one specific moment. I think it was just the things that she was teaching us. She was basically bringing up a lot of topics that were just very philosophical or kind of maybe societal. Like, we would maybe watch a movie about like euthanasia, for example, like a very artistic movie. I think it was called Liebe or something like that. I don't remember. Or Love. But it was like a French movie directed by an Austrian director. And it was a very tough watch. But we had really, really deep talks about like, what is life? Like, when is it okay for a person to decide whether they want to continue living, or like what is important, or like all of these things. And it just makes you think. And me as a 16-year-old, obviously, like I'm not like thinking about euthanasia and like the moral implications of it, right? But it made you develop more critical thinking, which is sometimes something that, even though we did a lot of critical thinking in French school, I feel like it's always what the professor wanted you to say, not actually what you were thinking. You know, if your train of thoughts was leading in a different direction than what the professor wanted you to say, then you would usually get a worse grade. So I feel like, yeah, there was certain aspects that I wish could have been different in French school. That's why when you were mentioning that, like, university in the UK, the professor is a little bit too lenient. For me, that was so refreshing, actually, because I was already developing this anxiety and this panic. When I struggled in second year of uni, I remember I was starting to like be late on my essays and I was really struggling, and they were like, Draga, what's going on? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like quitting. I don't know what's like. I was entering some sort of like crisis. And they were like, oh, we're going to give you extensions. Like, please go to a counseling services. Like, they can talk to you about it. That's when I heard about like procrastination, about anxiety, about this, about that for the first time. Because in an Eastern European household, you don't really talk about mental health like that, you know? My parents are like, you just need to be more organized, you know? So I was like, I always thought I was lazy. Something was wrong with me. Like, I wasn't disciplined enough. That was always my thought. But actually, what I didn't realize was that throughout the years, I was just constantly pressured into achieving more, doing better, but never achieving it. And then like it wasn't good enough. And every time I did something good, it wasn't really praised much. But when I did something bad, it was really, really like such a huge thing that I constantly associated with like a small mistake becoming a huge catastrophe. And then being able to go to these counseling services and being offered that at a UK university, I think it also really helped that I went to study sociology, because I was, like all my teachers were very like liberal, very like, like this is all the fault of capitalism and like having to always perform and like there is no space for failure. But we're in a university, that's the place where you're supposed to fail, because if you are perfect, that means there is nothing to learn. So being told that by one of my personal tutors, I was like, oh my God, like, you're right. I cannot be perfect. Like, of course, I'm just a student and I'm learning, and this is my first time at a university, right? So I cannot be. I went from a French educational system to a British one. So also the writing system, all of that was very different. And it's normal to not be perfect, and just having teachers that were actually supportive of that and understanding, it just made me feel like, oh, like there is space for me to learn and to take my time with learning and to fail as well. And it's not going to be the end of the world. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of my kind of self-development and mental health journey as well, which, I'm very thankful for. And then going to Spain for a year, that
Tranquilo.
that really like helped me kind of like have that little reset that I needed. Because while I loved studying in the UK, everything was so politically correct. Everything was like, had to be done in a certain way and very softly spoken, and like, let's not talk about this. And then I moved to Spain, and I went to also study sociology. But I entered the campus and was like, trans feminism, communism, people smoking pot like in the hallways, wearing dreads, like piercings, tattoos. And I was like, where the hell am I? And this is me being a proper like Eastern European who has never like, done any sort of like substances except alcohol, of course, so I'm just like, oh my God, what is this place? And then people just having massive like discussions / fights in like classrooms with the professors, and they're like, no, I think about this and I think that, and I was like so overwhelmed that I'm already like trying to figure it all out because it's all in Spanish. And then we would go to a cafeteria to like have lunch, and they'll be like, Draga, what do you think? And I'm like, can I just have a break? I just want to eat my food in peace. But they would be like, no, like, we need to know your opinion. And that's when I realized, oh, it's okay to have an opinion too. Because in the UK, you're like afraid to like...
I can't, but I think that...
Exactly.
I just don't want to say anything.
You don't want to like offend anyone, right? And you have to kind of stay politically correct while trying to say your opinion. Whereas in Spain, there was no political correctness whatsoever. They're just like, I believe in this, and this is what I think is right. And then I was like, okay, I guess I can tell my opinion. Okay, this is my opinion from a foreigner perspective, or from a Serbian perspective, or from someone, living in all these countries. So that's where I really shaped my own, like, personality. I think Spain really allowed me to flourish into who I am today and how I express myself. Because I was always a little bit afraid. I was very much a people pleaser my whole life. So I was always like, I don't want to offend anyone. I kind of have an opinion, but I'm afraid that my opinion is wrong. Maybe I'm not well informed enough, or maybe I will say something that might like offend the other person. Whereas in Spain, that flew right out of the window. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to tell them about me, because sometimes they would say certain things that were very much, maybe a biased opinion. And I was like, oh, okay, so I actually have something to contribute to this. And that really like shaped me into becoming a more confident speaker, I think, as well. And obviously, like learning sociology for 4 years, you also realize that you are allowed to like speak upon certain topics because you do so much research. Like I remember like I would be reading 100 pages like of research every single day at some point because we would just learn about things. And at some point, obviously, you form an opinion on certain things, especially about societal issues or like gender, race, class issues. Because you see the numbers, you see the research, you see the interviews that people have done, the qualitative and the quantitative research on certain topics, and then you're like, actually, you know what, you're wrong. When somebody tells me something, I'm like, actually, I read like 5 books on this, and this is actually what is the right opinion on this subject. So yeah, I'm very grateful to also have studied sociology. I feel like everyone should, because maybe we would have a little bit less hate in this world. We would have a little bit more understanding of differences and why there are certain inequalities in this world.
Was that in Madrid?
So I studied it in the UK and in Madrid, in Spain, yeah, at La Complutense in Madrid.
Why did you choose Spain for your Erasmus?
Because I loved Spanish. I was very, very passionate about Spain and the Spanish language and anything Latin American. I just deep dive into certain cultures, and that was one of the things that I kind of had a hyper focus on. And I really wanted to learn the language. I just love the sound of it. I think it's so like sexy and flirty and like, I love that. And then I loved Spanish music from a very young age. I loved listening to like salsa, bachata, reggaeton, all of it. I just loved all of it. And then I did salsa and bachata in university too. It was something I really enjoyed. And then I learned how to cook Mexican cuisine because doing chicken fajitas for, like a group of people was like one of the easiest meals to kind of cook up. And then I moved to Spain and I was like, I really want to learn this language. And then I had a Bolivian boyfriend who didn't speak a word of English. So that really skyrocketed my Spanish as well. I fully deep dove into the culture. And that's actually when I was living in Spain. That's when I started being interested in Korean culture. Because I was like, okay, I have all of this. What's next? Yeah, I kind of hop from one thing to another. And I got interested in Korean culture.
And how did you discover it?
So I'm someone that spends a lot of time on YouTube, probably an unhealthy amount of time. And a lot of YouTubers were starting to react to Korean content. It was like famous YouTubers reacting to K-pop or like reacting to K-dramas or like TV shows in Korea and stuff like that. And I started watching that and I love dance. So I was like, ooh, why do these K-pop artists all dance and sing and rap and do all of these things? And I thought that was really cool. And then I started watching like some of their like variety shows, which were so over the top and like lots of like signs flashing and them like overreacting, and like it was like keeping my attention like to the highest level. And I don't know if I'm not diagnosed ADHD, but like that stuff really, like I loved it, like because sometimes I watch stuff and I like watch everything like double speed or like I just skip parts that are boring, but that always kept my attention. And I just started deep diving like into Korean content more and more. And I started watching basically foreign YouTubers that live in Korea and post the content about Korea. And I was like, their life seems really exciting and fun. And they are eating really delicious food. And I like the sound of this language. Like for some reason, Korean kind of sounded the coolest out of like Japanese, Chinese. And it also seemed like the easiest language to learn because they have their own writing system that is not tonal or like character based. So it felt like an easy choice from then on because I was like, I'm already interested in this. I kind of want to learn this language. And I had a friend, she's Korean, and she went to university with me in the UK. She studied sociology with me. And I just reached out to her and I was like, I'm watching all of this stuff. And she's like, whoa, where's this coming from? And we just started like hanging out more and more. And she introduced me to all of her Korean friends on campus in the UK. So I just had a huge like Korean community already before even moving to Korea. So that's when I started thinking like, oh, if I move to Korea, I can kind of travel all of Asia and just learn a new language. Because I anyways wanted to travel the world after university. I was like, okay, up until now, my parents wanted me to do all of this. Now it's my time to just do whatever I want. So I was like, I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to learn a new language. I'm just going to explore my creative side while I'm in my 20s and still young because, like, nothing's holding me back. And that's how I decided to move to Korea.
You moved to London, ended up meeting like a super diverse cohort of people in London, including Koreans. You went to Spain. You obviously perfected your Spanish or got that to a high level.
Yeah.
And then in Spain, started watching a lot of this. So the timeline is you went and did your year abroad.
Yeah.
Became interested in Korea, and then you came back to the UK.
That's right.
And then was that your final year then?
That was my final year.
So final year, then suddenly you've got all these Koreans around you.
Right.
When did the actual move happen and how did that?
So the move happened, I think, a year after I graduated. So I was still in the midst of changing my citizenship, and I was still waiting for an answer. So I went back to Austria to work for a year. And they were always saying like, oh yeah, in a month you'll get your answer. In 3 months you'll get your answer. So they kept doing this like for basically 7 years of my life. So I also have a lot of anxiety related to administrational things. But basically after 1 year, they were like, oh yeah, you're going to get your answer next month. And at that point I was like, I don't want to be in Austria. It just felt like a step backward, you know, when you like move already, you've been to different places. I wasn't really interested in living in Austria at that point in my life because I was like, I want to explore the world. I want to travel everywhere. I want to learn something new. So going to Austria just felt like going back into something familiar. And I'm someone that really thrives in like challenging environments rather than something that I'm like comfortable in. Because when I'm comfortable, then there's nothing to do. I just feel like bored and also just like I don't feel motivated to like achieve something. So after 1 year, I was like, that's it. I got to move to Korea. So I like signed up for a language course. I like paid everything. I was like, I was moving there. And I did my first like language course for like 3 months. And while I was there, I get a notification from the immigration in Austria, and they're like, so we see that you're not employed anymore. What's that? Like, we cannot like give you a citizenship if you're not employed. And I was like, no. So I like canceled everything my whole life that I was starting to build in Korea because I already had like an apartment that I signed for like a year and like the language course and everything. So after I finished the language course, I just packed my bags and moved back to Austria. And I was like, okay, this is going to take maximum 6 months, right? I stayed for another year and a half before I moved back to Korea. But by that point, I was kind of traveling back and forth to Korea because I loved it so much. I was so like adamant about being in Korea. There's something like, I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to be there. I was just really, really interested in the culture. And I was like, I feel like I saw many foreigners that were on TV speaking the language and like talking about cultures and about like their experiences growing up in different cultures. And I was like, this is me. Like, I should definitely do this kind of work because I have so much to contribute. I can talk about like all the knowledge that I have. Plus, I have a specialism in cultural studies, like studying a sociology degree. I feel like there's so much I can like share to the world, especially in a culture where it was very homogenous to begin with, right? Korea wasn't very used to foreigners in the first place. And that was a time where like foreigners started to kind of become a trend in Korea, and people were more curious about these foreigners living in Korea and realized, oh, they can actually integrate into society. They can learn our language. They can be like us. They're not actually that different from us. There's certain aspects in different cultures that are similar to Korean culture. And I was like, oh, I feel like it would be so great to open people's minds about like the rest of the world. And that's kind of where I felt compelled to like move to Korea as well. And also to travel all of Asia. That would be like a plus. So I ended up moving, but it was like mid-COVID. It was like June of 2020 when I moved back. And I was not able to travel Asia. I traveled a lot in Korea, so I did see I think probably more than most Koreans because they don't even travel around that much. Like, you never travel your own country as much as you travel other countries, right? So yeah, I saw pretty much all of Korea, and I loved it a lot. And I finished my language course, and then I switched to the entertainment visa, which is what I was already like kind of manifesting, like before even moving to Korea. I was watching all of these people. I was like, I want to do that. And yeah, I switched to an entertainment visa. But that was also hard. So like living in Korea, there's just a lot of struggles you kind of have to go through as a foreigner.
But if you haven't, we've seen that video.
Yeah.
We've actually posted a discussion with 6
Mm-hmm.
foreigners on the entertainment visa explaining about the good and the bad. But how was that transition then for you? I mean, maybe before, like you said that there were certain parts of the culture that attracted you here.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I can look at cultures online and think that looks cool.
Yeah.
But to actually move there
Yeah.
must have been something pretty strong. So what specifically stuck out? And then after that, we can speak about the entertainment stuff.
I don't know. I feel like, first of all, I just thought that, like how I feel like Asia was always considered like very exotic, for lack of a better word. I hate that word. I think it's very like white colonialist. But people always thought that like East Asians are a little bit weird in a way, right? And like it was never seen as like a cool thing. It was a very niche thing. Japan was kind of cool, but only for people that enjoyed anime or like were into that kind of thing. But even that certain people found to be weird, right? Because then people would do like cosplay and this and that. And that was like too out of the comfort zone of like an average European person, right? So then kind of Korean culture becoming a trend and then seeing that a lot of people really liked it, and then like all of this, that it was kind of like breaking all these stereotypes, because like, you would say that like, I don't know, Asian men were not as attractive or this and that, but then you would see all these K-pop idols and like girls swooning over them and, also not being conventionally maybe like masculine per se, because they have these like, hairstyles with makeup and like dressing in like maybe slightly feminine ways. I just loved that they were just like kind of challenging all of these like stereotypical things about what is attractive or what is not attractive and what is cool and what isn't cool. And I feel like I was kind of drawn in by that. And also just I'm a huge foodie, and the fact that Korean food like has no end. You would have certain like cultures where it's like, okay, you go to Germany and you have like these 10 representative dishes. And you kind of like, you eat them fairly often, right? In Korea, wherever you go, I feel like living here already 6 years, I still encounter new foods I've never tried before. Because there's like, every region has also its regional things. And there's just like no end to the food culture here. So I just love that aspect as well. And yeah, I just felt like, Korea was a little bit more, wasn't as reserved as like people like to say like Asia is so reserved and this and that, but like Koreans, they will also be kind of no, which is kind of like Serbian people, if you look bad that day, they'll be like, you look sick, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not wearing makeup, that's it. So like so there's good things about that, which I was kind of drawn to. And also it just seemed really dynamic. Things were always like happening in Seoul. Korea is very like ever expanding, and there was always something happening. And I think I was just drawn to that because Vienna, as much as I love it and I think it's beautiful, it's also kind of boring. Like nothing is happening there, like nothing changes. Everything kind of stays the same, which is very nice. It's very comfortable. But I didn't imagine my early 20s to be in a place where it's just comfortable and nice and stable. I wanted something that's like challenging and fun and dynamic. So yeah, that's why I was drawn to Korea, I guess.
What's interesting is when you were describing the part before about your Serbian parents and being quite strict, the Asian in me was like, oh yeah, I can relate to this. And I feel like with a lot of Eastern Europeans, you're getting closer to Asia. You do actually find a lot of similarities. Like you mentioned, people might not know those similarities, but you will encounter crossover, some huge differences. But also I found that a lot of the Eastern Europeans I've met in Asia, they don't always find it that difficult on some levels. So would you say there are similarities with Serbian culture and some Asian? Like, what are the main similarities and differences?
I mean, first of all, Korea is a very community-based culture, and I feel like Serbian people are also like that. It's very much about family, about friends, and it's always like everything surrounds on those kinds of like gatherings. And Koreans love their gatherings, right? They're always surrounded by by family, friends, or company workers, or this or that. So you always have to do things in groups. And in that sense, like just the food culture, we always have to go and eat some food or drink together and stuff like that. It's very much like Serbia. And then drinking culture. Koreans love their drinks, and Serbians do too. So definitely lots of drinking involved. And I was very shocked, actually. I've never been to a country that drinks as much as Korea, and that was like one of my first cultural shocks. I didn't realize that Koreans drink as much as they do, and they get really drunk. Like they, because they drink hard liquor, but they drink it fast, so they're just going at it. And I was like, wow, okay. And they like to party up until like the early morning, and that's kind of like Serbian, at least Belgrade party culture. We go. We drink at maybe bars or like kafanas, which are like typical traditional like restaurants with like live music and stuff, and you would drink there, and then maybe you would end up at a splav, which is like a boat club like on the river. So you have these boat platforms, and you would go and drink there like in a club, and you would go up until the early morning, and then you'd go and grab a burek in the early morning, which is like really greasy pastry that can be filled with either like cheese or
they use the same word in Turkish as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it the same thing as
the Serbian people were under the Ottoman Empire for around 400 years or more.
Okay, no, burek,
So we have-
it's so delicious. Yeah.
So we have a lot of similar food as well. And yeah, so we would have these kinds of food. And in Korea too, you would go for like haejang after going out partying. You would go for like hangover food. You would have like a hangover soup, even continue drinking, which is crazy to me. But yeah, so in that respect, I think they're more hardcore than Eastern Europeans in some way, because they just go to like get a hangover soup, but they continue drinking. So it's like, what's the point of the hangover soup then?
It's keep going, basically.
Yeah, you just keep going.
And then back to work at 7 a.m. the next day as well.
Yeah.
It's something I don't drink anymore, but I've experienced the drinking culture here. But then the next day I would be, as we say, written off, as we say in England, like I'll be destroyed. These guys, not back to work, stoic
Right.
the next day, and then there's another hueshik that evening as well, and they just repeat.
Yeah. The thing is, though, that they don't do it willingly, unfortunately. I feel like a lot of Koreans struggle because it's very hard for them to uphold any sort of boundaries, or like they cannot really like honor their own like limits because they have to listen to the superiors. Obviously, things are changing a little bit, thankfully, but it's still a lot of pressure on them because they have to kind of like listen to the superior, whether it's in age or in rank in a company. And then a lot of times they don't actually want to go to these company dinners, but they have to because it's just kind of mandatory. Obviously, some people enjoy it, and it depends on, your work environment and like if you have a good team or not. But sometimes it's just something that you kind of are required to do, even though you don't want to do it. And I feel like a lot of East Asian countries kind of have that sort of, it's slightly toxic in a way because you're not really allowed to say no. So yeah, it must be really difficult. I'm very grateful that I don't work in a company. So being in an entertainment industry, that's one of the perks, is like you kind of make your own rules of what you want and you don't want to do, whether you want to do the job or not want to do the job, right? But it comes with its own set of challenges, I think.
The second part of what we wanted to ask then is adapting to life as an entertainer, because even as a Brit, like hearing the word entertainer, like an entertainment visa, right? Your purpose is to entertain Koreans.
Right.
Like, what does that actually mean first? But then also, how has that experience been and adapting to that lifestyle?
So an entertainment visa is practically an artist visa. So basically, any sort of art that you are performing would be considered entertainment. So that would mean whether it's acting or dancing or modeling, or maybe appearing on YouTube videos or podcasts like this. If this is like a paid opportunity, this would fall under the entertainment visa as well. So anything that's related to the arts and I guess entertaining in a way, that would be an entertainment visa in Korea. And I knew that I wasn't very interested in modeling and stuff like that, because first of all, I don't think that I fit the Korean beauty standard. Unfortunately, there are certain strict rules of what Koreans like, in terms of looks and appearance. But also, I just see myself more sharing and talking, and maybe like showing my talents in different ways rather than just purely physical. So that's why I was going more into like YouTube and then also into acting. But it was a long, windy road for me to get where I am here today, because entertainment in Korea is actually not as easy as it seems, as you mentioned. There was a video, I guess, that explained all of that.
Yeah, people spoke about the challenges of it, and I'm wondering for you, I mean, being in Korea itself is amazing. We've established that, you've got this unlimited food and culture and the safety. I mean, I think we've established that we really appreciate it here. But maybe if someone else who's watching this who would think, you know what, Draga's got a pretty cool life, but to get there, what advice or like what main challenges have you overcome now that you think, looking back to a younger version of yourself or a newcomer, you could say, oh, maybe don't do this and it might help you out, or actually you should have done that. Are there any key bits of advice there?
First of all, if you want to do entertainment in Korea, you have to come with a big amount of savings, I would say, because you are not going to earn money like from the get-go. Unless you're super lucky and you have the perfect like modeling figure and looks and what Koreans want, and you happen to make the greatest contacts that keep wanting you back, you are going to struggle financially. And the problem is that on an entertainment visa, you're not allowed to do part-time work.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, it's illegal. But let me tell you something. Most entertainers actually do some sort, like just under the table, whether it's like waitressing or like working in like a bar or, teaching English and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of people struggle to actually survive, and me included, to be honest, because like I said, I'm not that into modeling, and modeling is actually where you earn the most money in Korea. If you get, for example, like a big Samsung commercial, you can get a couple million Korean won, which is like a couple €1,000 or dollars, right? And that's just for one day of work. So if you get like one of this a month, which also you don't really get. It's not like Samsung commercials will take you as a main model every single month, right? So you have to think about that you will have to do a lot of small jobs that are very low pay. And because there's more and more people coming wanting to do this, the market price is going down, right? Because there will always be newbies that will accept lower prices. And with that in mind, like if you do any sort of like extra work in dramas or K-pop music videos, you're getting paid so little, like almost basically minimum wage, and you're just there out in the cold, sometimes wearing like small t-shirts and it's like -10, but you have to like pretend to be like dancing in the background, having a good time. And it's like, did I really finish a whole degree and like move to this country to, be in the background of like a video that will come out in like 1.5 years and getting paid only $100 for the whole day to like freeze, and you probably have to get some antibiotics by the end of the week because I'll get a cold from it, and like you'll just be 3 seconds in the background like blurred. Like it makes no sense, right? So you have to really, really be passionate about doing what you're doing in order to actually survive this, because it's tough and you will hear so many no's. Like you don't even hear no's. You just send I sent auditions and castings on like my model card, basically with all my pictures every single day, like to 5 different things. And most of the time you don't hear back, or like you hear, oh, sorry, we picked someone else. So you have to really be okay with rejection, and yeah, it's a tough industry, especially with more people coming in. And also it seems like economically things are going down, especially in the like film industry and stuff like that. So obviously there's even less opportunities. Except that these days there is a new form of media that's actually popping up. And fortunately for a lot of us that are doing acting in Korea, we have found a little, twinkle of hope in the vertical spaces. So there is this thing called short form drama, and it's a vertical, basically short form series that you watch on your phone, like over certain apps, that actually are being filmed all over Asia now. stems from China. It started maybe 5 years ago in China in Chinese, and maybe 2 years ago, or maybe now 3 years ago, with English-speaking content. And yeah, they have a lot of people acting in these short-form dramas and pay pretty well because it's very low budget but very high return because people subscribe to these apps and spend a lot of money, even more than certain Netflix subscriptions and stuff like that, because it's just very addictive. It's short form, kind of real formatting, like videos that just are there to grab your attention with very, very dramatic story plots, very telenovela-esque or soap opera-ish. And yeah, that's what I got myself into nowadays. I'm acting in short form vertical dramas.
It's kind of crazy that when you were a kid, you were sitting watching those telenovelas. Did you ever think at that moment, I'm gonna be in these? Was that ever a thing?
No, I mean, at some point I did do 7 years of theater acting back when I was a teenager. I was actually acting in Serbian and Austria. That was one of my ways to kind of stay connected to Serbian culture.
So you...
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
So
like...
you do have a background in
I have a bit of a background. It wasn't like a professional formation or anything of that sorts, but obviously being on stage for 7 years, it kind of teaches you to be comfortable and in front of an audience, and also how to like act. Obviously, theater acting very different from camera acting. But if you think about it, vertical dramas are so dramatic that they're very theatrical in and of itself. So it helped actually having a theater background for these vertical dramas, because the acting is not supposed to be very natural. They want you to be very over the top. And, you know, a lot of people call this kind of content very cringy. I personally find it, a bit funny too. Because it is meant to really grab your attention and kind of keep you engaged, right? So if you do slow, very realistic acting, it's not going to have the same effect if it's supposed to like really, like be punchy and like attention grabbing.
It's a big contrast we're finding even on the YouTube space now. That, of course, shorts are around, and then we have a long form podcast that what's been quite reassuring to us is finding out that actually a lot of people do, if they have the right hook, I guess, will sit down and watch a long form podcast, but you are competing with the high attention grabbing content all the time going on as well, right? So it's just very different. Some people will stick a podcast on in the background, go for a walk for 2 hours, and they do have that capacity, but then at the same time, they might just sit down and just swipe. So everyone's swiping so much, and then your content has to stop the swipe. That's got to have something special, right?
Yeah, I mean, those vertical dramas, they definitely they know exactly what they're doing, because they have basically algorithms reading what is grabbing the most attention. So they recycle the same stories, like using probably AI generated content and stuff like that. A lot of it is AI translated. So even if you watch certain vertical dramas in English, you will see that it sounds a bit awkward and a bit strange, because actually the scripts themselves are kind of AI written, which makes it harder for us to act it in a natural way, because it's a very strange, like, formatted sentence, and because this is all filmed within like a span of 7 to 10 days. It's very, very quick. We shoot maybe 12 to 20 hours every single day. It's a lot of it's very hard but very intense work. So we don't really have time to learn the script by heart. We kind of like cram it in like right before the scene. We just read the lines. We're like, okay, in front of the camera. As long as we kind of say it the way that it's supposed to be said, they're like, okay, cut, next scene. So they don't really like the acting itself is not the main focus here. It's more the fact that they want to bring out this product like as quickly as they can and have people engage with it. So it's very interesting. I think they found something that really, really like adapted to today's society, because our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and people are not able to sit through a whole long formatted drama, like a K-drama, for example, that's so long-winded. It takes 17 episodes for them to hold hands, right? So, and this, you happen to have everything happening already in episode 1 so that they grab your attention and then you start watching the whole thing. So yeah, it's very smart in a way, you know. It's definitely a business mindset. I do hope for a more artistic approach in the future when it comes to these vertical dramas. I hope it becomes better and better in quality because it does seem like an expanding market. And even in Hollywood, most of the productions these days are short form vertical dramas because the film industry is kind of like plummeting slowly. And more people are actually willing to spend money on these vertical short form dramas. It's an exciting like space to be in because I'm kind of there at the beginning of it, and I hope for it to have, you know, and for it to develop into something bigger and better. And I hope that me being in it from the get-go will open up some doors of opportunity for bigger and better projects.
Well, hopefully we can all follow you in this journey as you progress in all of these different avenues. But where can people find you if they do want to follow this journey?
Well, if you want to follow me personally, you should do that on my Instagram. It's called Draga __. Very easy. But if you want to watch me being on YouTube, for example, where I share about languages as a Slavic person or as a polyglot, I am a lot on World Friends. It's a YouTube channel that has people from all over the world. And if you write World Friends Serbia, basically all my videos will pop up. So you can watch me like share my language knowledge and be a little smart on the channel. As a lot of people write, like, they're always like, oh, Draga is so smart. But then some people are like, oh, she's such a smart. I'm like, well, you know, yeah, it can be either or, but, you know, I'm happy to share about languages and culture. So if you want to watch videos about me geeking out on languages, you can do that there. But yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Draga, thank you so much for breaking down the whole story today, from all the way starting off in Austria, back and forth around Europe, and then all the way here to Asia, China, everything. Of course, as she's mentioned, make sure you check her out on her own Instagram, but also World Friends on YouTube. All the links are going to be there. But also stick around because we're going to have another conversation with Draga, specifically where she can geek out and be a smart about languages. So with that, we'll see you all very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you did enjoy it, let us know what you think in the comments, what you agree, disagree with. And of course, subscribe, as it helps us to meet more amazing people like Draga and have conversations like this. So with that, à très bientôt. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Thank you.